Welcome to the Education Innovators Podcast. I'm Eric Byron, and it is my privilege to host this show where I get to talk to folks from all over the world who are education thought leaders and innovators. We'll hear inspiring stories from educators, EdTech founders, AI experts, and others who are fearlessly innovating and delivering unique learning experiences. I'm glad you're here. Let's get started.
Through a project, through different means of expression, through different means of access, they can have that inclusive feeling. And I really fight for that. I think that's always been my thing as a neuro-inclusive framework with AIxPBL. But it means that, that no kid gets left behind, and they all feel that they've had success and they're up there sharing in that moment of success.
You know you've hit gold when your guest is so passionate and emotional that he has to wipe tears from his eyes as he tells you about students in his class. Phillip Alcock, my guest today, he's one of those kids, actually. He struggled in school and didn't fit the mold. Now, Phil is using AI and years of experience with project-based learning to create engaging learning experiences that bridge the gap for kids who really have a hard time with traditional pedagogies and assessments. Have a listen.
Ready to go.
All right.
Let's do this.
We'll jump right in. Welcome to the Education Innovators Podcast. I'm Eric Byron. I'm joined today with Phillip Alcock. So Phil is a founder of AIxPBL. It's a startup focused on AI-powered project-based learning. His experience is in STEM and STEAM education, project-based learning, research and implementation, game-based learning, sustainability education, AI-enhanced curriculum design, and learner-centric pedagogies. I'm not making this up. It's like his experience is a rundown of the topics I frequently cover on this podcast. So Phil is also a prolific writer, and I've been receiving and consuming his newsletter for some time. If you haven't subscribed yet, look him up. You should do that. I'll also note Phil is Australian, but currently living in Mexico. So we've got another country added to the growing list of places where my guests are when we record. So welcome to the show, Phil. I'm glad we finally got together here.
Thank you. We made it. Amazing. I'm very excited. Thank you for that introduction as well.
Good. Yeah, no, this is going to be fun because literally I didn't know what to ask you. There's so many things that you've written about that, strike a chord with me. But let's just start with a little background. Let's get to know you a little better for my sake and for the audience's sake here. So I noticed your profile on LinkedIn only goes back to 2016, but I'm thinking your story goes back further than that. So what can you tell me about where you come from and and how you ended up in education?
Yeah, thank you. It's definitely been a journey. I started working at 11 years old, I think I was 10 or 11 years old, selling pies at the football. So meat pies was like a common thing to sell in the AFL. And I got a job there when I was young and haven't stopped working since. I think I spent a lot of my years in the world of hospitality and loved it. Always wanted to be a chef, always loved food, loved just talking to people and being around and things like that. Life took me on different journeys. I was kind of in the world of hospitality and I nearly cut my finger off. And I just thought to myself, you know what, maybe I'm a bit too distracted in this job. I'm not really focused on being a chef. I'm probably talking to people too much and just not with it. And I started teaching kids in a Montessori school. They started to come to this health retreat that I was working at. And so I guess that's where I kind of got my first taste of teaching. I thought, this is pretty cool. I like this, I enjoyed the teaching part more than I did the cooking. So I thought, not the eating, but the cooking. and then long story short, I got into IT. Unfortunately, my father passed away while I was working in IT. And one of his dreams was always to be a teacher. And I was really having a lot of trouble. He died from cancer within 3 months. It was such a quick thing. He was very healthy, very outgoing and full of life. And one of his dreams was to be a teacher over in Thailand. And I looked around at different countries, found a job in Vietnam and thought maybe I'm just going to honor him and just do that for a few months, just so I can feel that that was his dream and he never got there because he got so sick. And then I started teaching. I was in an ESL school and they were like, go for it, Phil, do what you want. And that's when it all started. I started just having fun projects and really cool ways of learning. My classes were great, packing out and lots of really interesting things happening. People were loving the learning. And I thought, well, maybe I should become a teacher. Went back to university as a mature age student. I never even finished high school. So I had a bit of a rough high school years. I think I left in year 10 or year 11. I was very distant, but I went back, went to university, did well in that, and started learning about game-based learning, project-based learning. That became my passion. I was going to go and take that further into higher education studies, and then I decided, nah, I want to go and be one of those people that doesn't want to talk from a book. I already get annoyed of that now. I don't want to be that guy. So I'm like, I want to be there teaching and say that I've done it. So I'm like, I'm going to go out and bring game-based learning and project-based learning into schools as an early year teacher, and realize schools are a little bit different than what I had envisioned in my brain. So unfortunately, it took a little while to really work out how projects and game-based learning fits in education. So over time, I ended up getting a position as a sustainability specialist. And then in that role, I kind of needed to find a way to engage with students. I needed to find a way to teach them great things about sustainability, and project-based learning just kept coming up all the time. And I thought, well, let's just explore that. Problem-based learning, I think I was learning at the start. And then I thought, well, that's great. We're talking about problems. We're talking about solving things together. This works out well. And since then, I've been a PBL nerd. I've wanted to study it, and I wanted to be Australia's expert. That was my goal. I just thought this is an amazing thing. Everyone needs to do it. Kids love it. It's great. And then I found a school in Mexico that was a PBL school. And I thought to myself, this will be amazing to go to a school that's all PBL ready. And I was just ready for this amazing experience. And it was very different when I went there. Maybe perhaps it was more marketed as a PBL school, and they were in the early stages of, turning from lessons to projects. So I did really well at that school. I got a lot of free reign to test out a lot of things, and I enjoyed it. I thought, you know what, the kids love PBL. They all want to do PBL, and it's really cool. And then AI came along. I started experimenting with AI and PBL and creating these really interesting personalized projects, and it really engaged kids that were just not into math, not into this, not even not into school. And I just saw this incredible, I'm not sure what you would call it, but this incredible kind of change and this incredible engagement for some students. I picked a group that was very reluctant and not really enjoying learning and had a few gaps, and all of them just went crazy. I started linking math concepts with art and all sorts of crazy things. And over time, we just kind of developed this great thing. Everyone was like, I want AI to help me. I want AI. And by that stage, I was like, I've got a whole class that, we all were just buzzing. We're all excited. We want to be part of AI and PBL and do all these amazing things and personalize our learning and have fun. And I just thought, you know what, maybe I need to take a year off. I need to really explore this and write about it. And that's all I did. Went to LinkedIn, started writing, and here we are now. I'm doing podcasts and talking about things, working with amazing people all around the world. And really over the last year, working with iCamp and Kyber and I'm now working with Teach AI for some things, and SciSpace and Humi.ai. It keeps adding every week after week. There's new little things. And now I feel very privileged that, I'm so passionate about project-based learning, but what AI can do with it and what I have done with it already is pretty spectacular. It's not just a quick, let's save a bunch of time with lessons. It just redesigns the learning experience. So I really enjoy that.
Wow, that's great. There's so many things that you just talked about there that resonate with me anyway. Of course, I come from an IT background also fell in love with teaching. The difference for me was I worked during the day and taught at night, but I did it partly also because I wanted it to be very practical, right? My teaching was very real world, right? Here's the crisis I had to deal with today at work, and we would talk about that, and I would integrate real-time practical stuff into the lessons I was teaching. And so Great experience. What I'd love to have you, help me understand better. So when you say a project-based learning school, what does that really mean? I mean, I know a little bit about project-based learning, of course, kind of integrated into curriculum, but what does it mean when a school says they're project-based? How does that look? How is that different from a normal school?
Yeah, I didn't know what I was expecting to see in a project-based learning school. I mean, you said it best, like it's kind of real world. I just thought, hey, they're going to have all these real world connections and have gardens and everything. And I went there, there was none of that at all. There was really no projects going on and no sustainability and anything. I think ideally, a project-based learning school is every subject is done through a project, and then you run instructional materials and explicit materials through the project. And so, as an example, I mean, this was called a PBL school. They were setting a plan to be that, but what their difference was that they didn't want to be the traditional worksheet, go home, do your homework kind of traditional way of teaching. They wanted to be a little bit different, no homework, like change a few things around. So I think often, though, my understanding, those kind of schools, they do want to kind of stick out as being a little bit different. Maybe progressive could be the word, but I think it's just they want to sort of have some more real world experiences, and they want, they often follow a lot of universities. I know the Tech de Monterrey started being interested in project-based learning. And so I think it's that kind of like the idea that a school can be through really interesting projects and discoveries and all of that. And then the idea, like if you're creating a PBL, for example, I guess the whole reason behind why you're creating it is maybe to bring a different level of engagement. So you watch a video, you do a test, and that kind of thing. People have done those kind of things, but I feel like in a project, you research it, you do a whole range of extra things. So my understanding, the school was very new to it. Even the PBL coach of the school, she was very even new to PBL. So it was a lot of trying to work out, well, how is this different? What is PBL? But PBL is this, and you need to do that. And it's kind of like just watching that transition of not everything needs to be a certain way. The teacher's got to step back a little bit and be like the guide. You might have a project. So the project might be exoplanets, and then part of the project can be science. We're going to cook things that they can have in space, maths. We're going to work out how much oxygen they're going to need. And that's kind of like the basic way of how they do these PBL. Like this school was kind of doing it, was just really often attaching it to science, often attaching it to subjects that maybe can be a little bit dry, where you're making a diorama about something and it's not so engaging, it's messy, it's loud. But I feel that the first steps is to really take a different approach and think to yourself, well, what if the student was running the show, and what would they be interested in? And this school, their process was really to just kind of go one by one, to go, well, we'll do one project a term, and next term it'll be 2, and next term it'll be 3. And then the idea is that they want all the subjects to be as projects, so you have a theme. Maybe the theme's the same amongst the year level. So it was an elementary school, and then they can do different elements, and you come together and showcase your learning and things like that. So it's very kind of similar to, often it is pretty much the same kind of work that you do in a traditional school, but you do it through a project. You might have some experts, you might have some workshops, and a few little extra things of the learning that just make it seem like we're all involved in this. We're working together. Maybe we're connecting it to sustainable development goals, and you're discussing it. You're talking, what does the word PBL mean? What do parents think of it? Some of them think, oh, I want my kids to be learning math, not sitting there running around doing projects about Mars. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of like misconceptions of it. So the early stages are often just, do one project a term, talk about it. And often the parents will see how engaged the kids will be. And then the next term, you kind of stagger it and add a little bit extra, and make sure that you're keeping that core learning that's going to get the results, which is really holds PBL back in a lot of ways, but also it's there. You can't do anything about it. Grades are still grades for now. And so, you're trying to engage students in a different way of learning. And often they don't train, this school they didn't really train anyone about PBL. They just sort of said, we'll work it out and go to this person. And that was the problem. It wasn't really a whole approach of learning and trying to work out, well, if a new teacher walks in and doesn't know what PBL is, for them trying to work it out from another teacher and another teacher, those things can be not implemented so well. So I saw varied results of PBL in different classes, and the people that really take it on were often the science kind of people, because they've been doing similar kind of projects and experiments,
Right. That's probably the easiest fit. So this is great. By the way, all the wheels are turning now, right? And I'm thinking kind of organizationally within a school, right? And you want to do this, right? All the things you kind of learn from seeing what you saw there, right? That, I think you have to come in with a plan, right? You've got to have a holistic view of this and the impact on curriculum, the impact on professional development for the teachers themselves have to understand how to implement this. Then you have kind of the design of the projects themselves, and then assessment, right? Again, going back almost, and then you got that parent piece, right? So I think the assessment piece helps with the parents, right? Because if you're still doing assessments and they can see, oh yeah, they're learning the material, they're, getting what they need to get out of this, and the kids are more engaged, then that all works. But yeah, just to try to, put a sign on the door that says, oh, we're PBL, and we haven't really done any of the work to get there is a bit problematic.
When you travel 17,000 kilometers to do it, and you go, I meant to be learning from you. What the? Now here's how to do it. You know what I mean? Right. It was this weird kind of, it was a weird feeling. It was like, but yeah, you're right. And that's now they're kind of calling that a portfolio. I think as parents realized, I was given a lot of trial and ability to just make everything PBL except for the maths book. I couldn't get rid of that, unfortunately, but I was able to give this thing. And so what the parents started seeing is, normally they get to parent-teacher interviews and the kids are like, I don't know, I like this, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like maybe some talk, some don't. Yeah. But they were just like, look at this project, look what I did, look at my information report, so they could actually reflect on all of their learning through the project, through the portfolio. So I think people just think project, rubric, let's try and I don't know, they take it so far away, and it's like, no, they can still do a project about space and write an information report with a heading and an introduction and a fact box and whatever else that is going to get them better marks on the grade. But essentially, it is assessment's the biggest challenge, because you're taking away from that. You need to know this on the test, and you're kind of giving students the right to just take that idea instead of saying, no, you need to focus. This needs to be on the test. You need to, I've got an idea about, creating a hotel in space. Like that's what someone came up with. And I'm like, what? What's that got to do with science? Yeah. And I'm like, really confused, but this student's like, not interested unless I can do a hotel. All right, fine. She turned the classroom into a hotel. She told everyone she was able to choose a menu. The menu, she had to grow things, or she had to get things from the land. So she had to speak to all the scientists. This person knew more than the entire class about science, because they're like, well, you need this, we can only eat this, da 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 da. And it's like, it's amazing. So, you're allowing some of that take away, but it's hard for people to see that and go, but what about the work? And why are they getting an A? And what are you doing to help improve their things? And, it gets a little bit but it's at the same time, parents really saw I would feel by the end of the year, they go, I get PBL now. I get it. It's engaging. The kids are working on these. Kids were used to Zoom call each other and Google Meet each other to work on projects outside of school. And these parents were like, I've never seen my kid even talk about school outside of school. Here they are talking about rocket science, and I've signed them up to ChatGPT-4. I'd have parents. There was one parent that I was closer with, and they'd be like, do you realize my kid is now asking for ChatGPT access because they need to work out how to send a rocket to the moon? And they're not just just creating a cardboard rocket and saying, this is what this part, this, and they're getting an A. They're really taking some of their inquiries, and that's what I love about it. It's just very hard to sometimes put that on paper, But if you plan it well enough, you add so much that, parents are like, wow, they did so much work. And also they can articulate it, which I think is the best part. It's not just, I don't know what we did, I can't remember. I just remembered that at the time and got a good mark. It's like, no, we explored this. We went to this place. Mr. Phil said, what about this? And just take notice of this. And, and so they show the parents the development of their learning, and the parents just sit there like, whoa, and they're taking control, and, they're running out of time. And like, how many of those situations can go the other way, where it's like, well, they could have, if they sat down in class enough and did their work, they could have done the right thing. No, they, like, the parents are just watching. This is a whole new being that's being developed, who's really loving to learn. I love to learn myself, but I feel that, through PBL and through a good project, they can discover something about themselves and learning, and that's gold.
Yeah. One of the concepts that comes to mind for me, and I think about this stuff, is learning as a pull versus a push, right? So a push is, me lecturing and telling you need to know this, right? That's a push. I'm telling you need to know this, memorize this, I'm going to test you on this, right? Versus a pull, which is when I stimulate curiosity and you go, I want to figure out how to put a rocket on the moon, right? Now, I'm driving that, right? I'm pulling, I'm asking, I'm questioning, I'm going out and seeking new information and knowledge. And to me, so the other terms I also use are, outcome versus output, right? So output is the project itself, right? I built something or whatever, right? That's the output, but the outcome is that desire to know something, that curiosity, right? Because it's never really about any particular thing that a kid learns growing up, because the world is changing so fast. Almost anything you learn is obsolete or, of less value in the future. There's fundamental skills you need, but most knowledge acquisition is of low value now, right? But that curiosity, that desire to know things, that's the real outcome. And I think that's why project-based learning works, is because it creates more of a pull than a push. And engagement, I noticed you just did an article on the NAPLAN NA plan. I don't know how you say it.
Yes, the NAP plan. Yes, they call it. Yep.
Yeah. And a lot of that was, well, you can talk more about your analysis of that, and you used AI to do an analysis of a complex data set, which I love that. But engagement, right, is a real problem, right? Kids who need that, additional assistance, who you can't just push. You can't just say, oh, go learn this, right? Either they don't care or they don't get it for whatever reason, and they're missing it, and the system just moves on anyway, right? And kids get left behind. So anyway, talk to me a little bit about, what's happening there, right? So how is project-based learning really addressing some of that? The kids who are being left behind, how are we helping them with project-based learning?
Yeah, thanks. Great question as well. I can just be very personal here with my own story. I was not someone to fit into schools. I had a lot of problems. I was pretty lucky that I had some good teachers. Who knows where I would have ended up, but I sort of went from this different spectrum to go, this is really easy, that I could just read a math book and memorize it and get 100% on the test for all the tests for the year. Give me every test and I could just do it. I was just that kind of student, and I was also left behind for that reason, because I was also like, oh, you're smart, you're this, you're that, everyone's got to be like me and whatever else. And I wasn't engaging in the learning. I was causing problems. Often I'd have to go to other classes. In year 3, I was kicked out into year 6. Often I'd spend more time in those classes doing maths and working with them on other projects. And that was their answer to me, was to kick me out of the class. You know what I mean? And I think to myself, like, it does make me feel a little bit emotional just even talking about it now, because I think to myself, like, I'm one of those kids, and I was able to have an opportunity in year 5, I think it was. And I went to this girls' college in a fancy area in a fancy school, and they're all wearing like fancy things. And, I was like, wow, what's this place? I mean, this is fancy, for a gifted program, they called it. And we did a project. We created a futuristic school. They used to pull me out of class maybe once every couple of weeks. I went over to there with a teacher and a couple of kids, and we were part of this project to build a futuristic school. And I'd never felt more at home than I did in those walls. If I can find those teachers again, it would be amazing, because I'd be like, that was PBL. That was just you let us do what we wanted to do. If we wanted to build a government system in our futuristic city, you were like, cool, let's go. There was no, we got to do this, or no, you've already done that and get out of here, or there was it just didn't seem like I was fighting anything. So I found my place when I was very young. And so I think I took that on, as I never really wanted to be a teacher. Obviously, I hated the school system. I was a left out kid. But as I became a teacher, and as I saw my difference that I could make, I listened to those kids, and I really cared about them. And I remember one girl from my class. I remember her, and maybe she's kind of the reason that has driven me to take on this project. Is everyone else in the class was doing fantastic with results and getting incredible things, and she was dyslexic. She couldn't write properly. She didn't have an option. They were very strict on the way they had to take this final test, because this is the way people do it and whatever. It was a bit of a funny kind of town, and a lot of schools are probably like that, And in the end, she just suffered. She was really, I just saw how much pain she went through. And you saw right at the end, right at the end, we give awards if they get a certain mark and average and whatever. And my kids went like crazy and got all these incredible marks. It was amazing. And she got one award that was nothing to do with academics. And I just thought, I saw her, I'm in an emotional mood today. I saw her walk on the stage. I'm going to cry. Wow. But I saw her, it's just really brought it back up. But I saw her like walk on the stage as this, like, everyone kind of had achieved great academic things. And she achieved so much. Wow, it's really getting to me. But she achieved so much during the year through the project. She made dances about sustainability. She did things that were just incredible. She's like an amazing, accomplished, award-winning dancer, is like on another level in that world. But she had expressed it in other ways. And I thought to myself, this kid doesn't deserve this. She doesn't deserve to stand there. I remember she going to the actual to the award ceremony, and you could tell she was kind of forced there, or she wanted to really be there for her friend, but she was like, I really don't want to be here now. And I just saw the look in her face, feeling like she'd failed. And I was like, oh my goodness, like, she has got the most effort out of anyone. The amount of effort it took her to do things and to express things, and even working with people, I was like, this is really, really unfair. This whole system is so unfair. And this is a PBL school, and yet this person's sitting here like completely distressed. And so I know for a fact that PBL, it gives really great ways for people to show what they've learned, and it doesn't have to be in the traditional sense. She's always going to be left behind. She was told to me as other people, as forget about her, she's a no hope, she's never going to get anywhere. And when I realized she's dyslexic, do you guys know that? And they're like, whatever, she doesn't do her work, she's not a good writer. They're really rude about it. And I was like, wow. What the? And then I've seen so many kids, even through writing narratives. I have this thing now with AI, and I write narratives for learning goals and to understand, to explain concepts. And I'm realizing with learners that are autistic, sometimes a learning goal is like, you need to learn this. It's almost like, what? It's like, what do you mean I need to learn this? Like, why? And they get all like, what? And they kind of lose it. But then you explain what the learning goal is through the character explaining it to his friend and stuff like that. You can have a better access to the learning. So that whole UDL framework and things like that works so well with PBL, and it is an inclusive framework. It gives everyone a chance to showcase something great. It doesn't need to be an essay of writing. I mean, how many great writers write stuff and it's not so great, but you're talking like, imagine if there's a way that they can showcase it. And this was one of the people that did that hotel project in the classroom, and it was just brilliant. It was like they went to so much effort for this stuff. They literally redesigned the classroom. They created menus. They literally went out, created menus, got them printed up like to make them all fancy. And maybe their parents had a bit more money than other people and could go and make it that fancy. But at the same time, I was like, wow, this is such a great, I think I've given her that love of learning, and often talked and been like, don't let this, get you down. But it's sad to say that as a teacher, that when students try so hard and they get left behind, no matter what they do, they're never going to have good marks. And I think, why should they be like that when they're working hard? If they do great projects, if they work with people, if they grow, they learn things, they can speak and tell you everything in the words and articulate it probably better than you. And they're sitting there, all right, write an information report. You did a bad mark. Okay, your writing score's low. That means your literacy score's low. And, now you're throwing books in front of them and saying, read this and do a test. And it's like, why are we doing this? These poor kids can't access this learning through a project, through different means of expression, through different means of access. They can have that inclusive feeling. And I really fight for that. I think that's always been my thing, as a neuro-inclusive framework with AIxPBL. But it means that, that no kid gets left behind, and they all feel that they've had success, and they're up there sharing in that moment of success with their friends to say, look at this project we did a hotel, and there's photos everywhere and music, and they're feeling success. Why does it have to be down to a grade? And I'm someone that always gets the best grades, so I've lived in that other way of life. But at the same time, it's like, my grades don't define me. I define me. My journey does. What I've learned, the way I express, the way I write, the way I, rap, the way I do all these different things that I do use to express myself. This is me. That's a better way, in my opinion. My writing, I was always told I couldn't write, and it's amazing now I do all this writing and people are responding. It's really the first time I've published it in the last year. And often I would struggle with things and being left behind, but through a project, I kind of took that approach with my own writing. I'm going to make it a fun project. I kind of gave myself a PBL experience, and now I enjoy it and feel like I'm part of it. So that's what it does. And imagine a group of kids. Well, imagine that group of kids. They were like, come back and see us at graduation. You'll see where we're all at. And it was sad to see them to say goodbye. But at the same time, I was really proud that we had such a strong PBL class. And I know every kid felt success, and they really did. Their parents would say that just the same. It was a really great experience that I care about a lot.
Yeah. Let's take a quick commercial break. Phil got pretty emotional there, and I know there's a lot of other teachers out there who also care deeply about the students as individuals and care about their success both as students and as people. Coming up, we're going to talk about how Phil is using AI to enhance the use of projects and to extend the creativity and help teachers come up with really engaging activities to improve learning outcomes. That's always the ultimate goal. I want to take just a second to plug the Human Intelligence Movement. This is not a paid advertisement. I'm a member and I support the organization and the movement. The mission of the Human Intelligence Movement is to ensure that all students have the skills to thrive and succeed in a world with AI. Join the movement. Links are in the show notes. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the AI impact there. So you've been doing project-based learning for quite a while, and now you kind of layer in AI to enhance the experiences or customize them. Talk to me a little bit about that. What's the power of AI there, and how are you leveraging that?
The power of AI is just every week I found something that's better and better and better. I've been pretty lucky, I think, because a lot of people have only been able to use AI in little kind of things. And I've been like working with iCamp, doing my tutoring. I did a lot of tutoring and made lessons after I finished. I see it as like, you start with this kind of like, oh, it's going to help me do this and things like that. But then what it does is it starts to break down entire processes of learning. And I work with Kyber as well. And that's like, I've been helping develop, it's, I guess, similar to kind of like a magic school. There's lots out there. But what I've realized over time with my prompts is you can prompt it in a certain way to get accurate information, or prompt it in a certain way to really get some strength behind the lesson plan. So with a good example with iCamp at the moment, is really transforming some lessons into these huge like journeys. Well, actually, something I worked on last night was with Humi.ai, HUMY.ai. I'm doing a project for them, and they've got these chat bots and things like that. And what you can do is you can start to you get your idea for learning. And so I feel that a project's like a journey. It's like a world. Every project's different. We all have our own projects in life, but they got their own life to them, And so when you use AI, what you can start doing is start connecting that project to a lot of other areas, and you can start with a project about, we're going to design a Mars colony. You can start with a project about, space, learning about space, but you're learning about it through Minecraft, and you're doing activities that you can go into Minecraft. You can find out the good learning things from there and go, all right, that's the good learning parts. That's what I want students to learn. I want them to get that out of it. But obviously they can get distracted, play the game, whatever. Then AI can then take out that make a project about this, and it gives them a fully scaffolded journey about this happens and that happens, and oh my goodness, there's a person, the Zorbonians from outer space. They want to know how we're going to colonize, the moon, and what are we going to do, and give that urgency, and all of that's just like AI generated. And I know that some of these lessons that I write for iCamp and even Humi and things like that would take me 20 or 30 hours to just do one lesson. A really good lesson would probably take that amount of time, because if you're researching it, you're finding out the points, you're pretending you're a student, you're testing it in different ways. No one has time for that. And if you think AI can then cut that, once you get the prompt and you work all that stuff out and you go, all right, I'm going to have learning goals, I'm going to have driving questions, I'm going to have connections that will do a discussion using metacognitive strategies. You can then have a different ways of accessing using UDL, all of these different things. You can start adding that in as an extra prompt. So you get your chat window and you imagine that's your lesson. And then within that, you start to prompt, all right, deconstruct this curriculum code, turn that into 4 learning goals. And that comes up with that. Okay, I want students to have 8 lessons to achieve those 4 learning goals. Comes up with that. I want them to do that. I want this. How about that? Add a project, do all that. Suddenly you've got this entire journey going on, like this thing I was making for Egypt last night. And it's like you're literally trying to discover riddles. You're a 15-year-old boy and you're in Egypt in this time, and you're walking through the market. What do you notice around you? And here's a picture, and here's an AI generated picture of what it might have looked like at that time. What do you see? What's different? How do you think kids would be like back then? Da 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 da. And then you're kind of taking them on this journey that, instead of going learn about this person and blah 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 and read a book and whatever, you're taking on this journey. And then it's like, oh, there's a problem. Now you need to go and speak to the emperor. What are you going to ask the emperor? Now go and speak to them. And then they go into a chat bot or whatever. And then they find out, ask them some questions and things like that, and do some discovery. And it's really it's what it does is it kind of it pushes the learning lesson plan into an experience and a project. Every lesson becomes its own kind of mini project. But then within that, you can be adaptive with it. If kids are really interested and go crazy about the scene at the market that everyone was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe they did that. They were, they broke the law with Hanbury's laws and whatever, and blah, blah, blah. They're going to get their arm chopped off. What happened there? And then suddenly you can be like, oh, bang, the next day you could let's just explore that a little bit more, and with AI, let's create a quick lesson or a quick discussion question, or can we do a day in the life of someone that may have experienced that, or who knows. You can do so much with it that you can take on inquiries and creativity and all this higher level thinking, and then turn that into actionable outcomes. If people aren't engaged, maybe they might be interested in another element of the project. You don't have to just deliver something as there it is and good luck, do it. If you don't, that's your problem. They can then shape it, move it. It can change in different directions. Week 1, we might have gone to this place, but then everyone was interested in this place. Week 2, we can go on a journey to there. We can do this, we can do that. So what you're essentially doing is you're really allowing that inquiry to be, look it up on Google is not the answer anymore. You can then design a learning experience. If the kids are interested in what happened in the pyramids or how they got built or something. Not every kid is, and we always think they are. It's like, here's a pyramid. So what? Like, it doesn't matter. But then if you tell them all the people that died and how it happened, wow, that's amazing, and give them that experience and take them on the journey, and maybe they become the worker for a day or something like that, and maybe they can then have an experience with a chat bot or something. It gets really interesting. The more I use Google Gemini Advanced the most, and I feel that I'm often like, creating a journey about geography, and then it becomes a motorbike journey, and then that becomes about learning about culture, and then suddenly the project takes off, and you're so confident to go with it with AI that you can just go and say, well, how about this, and what happens this, and can we create a micro project about this, and can we connect this project with this, and this person's only working on this but needs to do this. Is there a way that we can connect the two so they can achieve the learning outcome, and things like that? And it's like, that's where it starts to get really, really interesting. And I've done a lot of prompting, and I can tell you that it gets more and more interesting when you have agents and things like that I see when it starts to remember things and things. But the more that you give the AI, the clearer you are with what you're trying to achieve. You can actually extend that and say, you're not just teaching division, you might be teaching year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, and year 5 division as part of the project. You can differentiate it as part of the bigger project. No one really knows. You're working on this, you're working on this, you're working on this. And everyone's kind of building their skills in different areas. You can quickly adapt that with AI, and that's the beauty. And then you've got all these tools as well for images and music, and it's just developing every day. That's also going to add to that engagement of content. You've got metaverse now, where metaverse worlds can be created by AI. You can then take student interests and whatever and make metaverse worlds. And it's like, to me, that's where it's getting so interesting, because you can create these amazing experiences with AI that are real, that you're not just going on ChatGPT and saying, do this. You're engaging with it, and you're drawing out this information. And that's, to me, it gets the most amazing projects that I could imagine. Like, I wish I had them in school sometimes. I'm like, this is incredible. Like, this would be so much fun. I would go there. Like, it's so exciting just looking at where this could take you. But I feel that the best, the thing which AI never tells you, but it's like the best thing is you can really listen to the student, and you can find out what they're into. What are you having problems with? Oh, well, in grade 2, I didn't learn this, or in this, I didn't learn that. And you can go, well, I don't know the answer, but maybe I can work with AI, and we can try and work out some things and do some tests and whatever. Like, you've got this amazing teaching assistant that's just ready to give you incredible information whenever you want, and help you, support you with redesigning the whole learning experience. And then it becomes exciting. Like, oh my goodness, now I can live. I do it sometimes. I'm like, what would it be like living in this time? What would I have for breakfast? What would I have for lunch? What would I do for this? What would I do for fun? Like, it's amazing, just some of those inquiry questions. And I think to myself, as a student going through school, having true inquiry, I mean, that's something that I would never dream of happening, and AI can provide that.
So
for sure.
So I mean, I love your enthusiasm, and I agree with pretty much everything you've said. The one pushback we see sometimes, though, in those kind of scenarios. So I've gone to AI and I've said, create this narrative, what would I eat for breakfast, right? Part of the problem is, though, AI may just make something up, right? What it gives you back may not be accurate, right? It may tell you, oh, you're going to eat bananas, but, actually there were no bananas, right? Or whatever, right? So accuracy can be, a bit of a challenge there if you just go ask it, a question like that. So how do you deal with that? Because to me, I don't get wrapped around the axle, if you will, on the accuracy. It's more about getting you to think about something and why and what, and that you can challenge it and go, bananas, really? Why would you have bananas there, right? Who'd be growing bananas, right? Well, they're not native to there. So you can challenge the AI, and it's good for students to learn to do that too. And go, right, you gave me an answer that, I question, right? Yeah. So how do you kind of sell this to teachers, right, who come back with that and go, oh, you can't just ask it, what I would be doing in Egypt in this time period, because it may give you just completely made up narrative that is no basis in actual historical fact.
Yeah, know your subject, I guess, if you're a teacher. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't mean that like rudely, but I just kind of think to myself, if you're a history teacher, and I know what it's like. Not every history teacher is someone that knows a lot about history, so to speak. They teach a thing, they learn what they need to learn, and,
Teach it out of the
those
book.
kind of out of the book. Yeah, and if it's not in the book, what do you do if it's not in the teacher's edition or whatever? But yeah, like I don't know. I mean, for students using AI and that kind of thing, I mean, I guess that's another discussion. I don't know. I guess I mainly write things for elementary, so it's more just like interacting with scaffolded and guided questions versus asking. I don't know if I would say to a student, go and ask it what it ate for breakfast or something like that. But you could research, what food that they had in that time as part of the project. So you should be really always validating your knowledge in more than one way of just writing an essay. So if you've done that research and then you can be like, all right, now let's have some fun with it. Let's go to the AI and see if that's true or not, and it's all how you phrase it, because I don't know, going to an AI with a chat 3.5 GPT, whatever, is going to hallucinate. It's going to be terrible. And I've seen it and I'm like, wow, if you've got a chatbot that's made from learning materials, different story. If you've got things that are made and using, I mean, that's where it's kind of headed now, that these chatbots are getting developed not just as open to AI. That's the problem, is it goes straight to AI, and AI is just like, I'm fed up with these questions. Here's your answer. You know what I mean? It's almost like that. It's like, there's a stupid question, but it just makes it up, like putting glue on pizza and what random stuff I've seen. But I don't know. I never really have the problem. I find that if you start with a curriculum code and then you start creating activities around that curriculum code, they're going to be accurate with what you come up with, because that's kind of already connected with so much stuff on the internet and should hopefully be accurate. You've got to check it. Google Gemini Advanced has a function that you can check it against Google as well. That needs a lot of media literacy, really, of just, defining what's real and what's not. I kind of look at that and see that answer as well as, what do you do when students research? What do you actually teach them? What books do you give them? You say go on Google and do it? Do you even know what they're checking while they're going on Google? They got to check good websites. It's like, no, 90% of students go on Wikipedia, and you know that. But it still has citations, but at the same time, it's like, we've already got this system of going to Google and finding the answers and just being accepting with whatever, or, maybe we can cross-reference in a few different AIs and the different searches to see if that's inaccurate or not, and do that kind of like trio, and does it come from a good website and things like that. But I feel that if you were going to AI to find things out and just ask random questions, then it's probably not the best way to do it. But if you've got a scenario that you then build around the scenario, and maybe they chat to the person to find out something to do with the scenario that you've already tested it yourself a lot of times. That's the challenge at the moment with, I suppose, students using that. But I know that some of these chatbots are different developed. They're not so like open to AI. They've got a lot of parameters and things to really focus on the year. If you prompt it right, it's not going to give you hallucinations, and I've done that myself. I test stuff all the time, and sometimes it's just the way that they prompt. A lot of these, they call them GPT wrappers and things that are just basically got simple instructions. If you go on create your own GPT, it'll give you this prompt that's terrible. It's like, no, you need to prompt like this for it to be accurate and things like that. So that's like, Perplexity and Copilot and ones that access the internet are probably going to be better in some way. But I mean, I suppose it's something in development, and something that I feel that when Britannica and things like that come out with trained like chatbots and stuff, they're going to be a lot more accurate and give you better things. But yeah, they definitely got to keep checking, and create projects doesn't rely on a student asking a AI a question. I guess it's got to be a lot more involved.
Right. Yeah, I have used Perplexity a lot for research stuff. I really like that one as opposed to just Googling something, because You don't know, Google's responses are influenced by advertising and right, they pay to be at the top of the list. Not that they're the best resource, but they paid Google, right? So they rise to the top. So Perplexity doesn't really work that way. And I like the fact that it summarizes for you and then gives you the links to the resources that it found and summarized. So yeah, there's some great tools out there, but we have to use them correctly, right? Oh, there was something else there I was going to ask that popped in my head while you were talking about that. But well, I know we're kind of getting towards the end here. Game-based learning and integrating that with project-based learning. So I'm a big proponent of, there isn't just one kind of active learning mode, right? That we got to use all the tools in our tool belt to really engage students and get them there. And different students respond to different things. So I know you've done some stuff with game-based learning. How do you see that kind of fitting in here and integrating into project-based learning?
Yeah, well, it's kind of the funny thing. I've been doing like based learning, and I come up with a Shawshank Redemption based learning, and you can come up with any based learning, really. Yeah. It's pretty funny. I guess they all started from somewhere, but yeah, like it's looking at, is it going to work for the scenario of what you're in, and it's really experimentation. I use elements of game-based learning. I use gamification sometimes. I use scenario-based learning. I use play-based learning. Like I could go on forever for all the different types of learning that are involved. I feel like, the best thing to do is like, and this is what I'm going to be teaching to some practitioners soon, is that sometimes it's just best to say, here is a lesson plan. This is something that I've developed myself. This is great. I've already got my resources. I don't need to reinvent the wheel again. Take this lesson plan, and what would it look like if it was game-based learning? What would it look like if it was project-based learning? Ask it all the base learnings, and what would it look like if it was this? Is this going to be this? Is this going to be that? Nature-based learning, outdoor-based learning, there's so many of them. It depends on what you're doing, but I feel that one of the things with I guess what like the strongest thing with game-based learning is it's like a journey, in a lot of ways. I think of like a video game, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. That's probably still that's driving my life right now. That I think to myself that, video games take you on a journey. They allow you to solve riddles. They have things of different levels. They have a structure. You can have challenges. You can have tutorials. If you think like that with learning and just play a video game or play a few games or see some interactive education games that you might like, then think about how that would work with a lesson. And then sometimes it's just a matter of saying, what is game-based learning? What are the benefits of it? How could this apply to a project like this? Could game-based learning help me teach this? And that's kind of my way of doing it now. I have my prompt that I've made that has a whole list of different types. It has scenario-based, discussion-based, it has a whole range of different types of based learnings within it. And so that kind of works for me because I know that's what I'm passionate about. I know that I love video games. I know, that I love to learn about things. I love to have challenges. So I kind of create this learning experience based on my passions and also my reflections of what I've seen as successful in the class. I know that a lot of kids, and especially now with a lot of digital devices and things like that, can get very tuned off, whereas even when I started teaching compared to now, it's very different in those times. So times have adapted, but then I've kind of realized, well, maybe we need to have this activity. Right at the start, we need to make sure everyone kind of learns it, like straight away. I feel that if you can get people to learn what you need to teach them in the first 5 or 10 minutes, the rest of the lesson has got to be them exploring that and, validating what you're saying. And that's sometimes game-based learning, sometimes scenario-based learning, sometimes play-based learning. All of these things could actually help you engage. And maybe that could be, you could do a project on, let's say, project on a motorbike journey, We're going on a motorbike journey. You're going to plan your ideal motorbike journey and things like that. Then under that umbrella of the motorbike journey, maybe you can have an element that's very game based, that's very like the journey begins and, you choose a path and blah, 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 blah. And then it starts you off as like, wow, video games like that. But then the next one, it takes you into outdoor learning where you go outside and you've got to think, well, where would you park your motorbike here and things like that. So you're taking on these different active learning experiences under the umbrella of project-based learning. And really that's like your own passion, in what I feel, that some people feel that this is a great experience of learning. And this is what I've loved when I was a kid. And I know that for me, I got access to game-based learning. I got to play video games. I got to do all sorts of things in my experiences through this extra curricular things that I did. But ultimately it's kind of like is finding just what works with what you're trying to do. What are you trying to do here? Are you trying to get the kids to be engaged? Well, maybe that's where really gamification and making it fun is going to work, but that can't last for 20 lessons. The kids will go crazy. Yeah. So then maybe there's got to be that element and go, well, then it's got to be inquiry based so they can start owning that learning. Then you've got to use that to create some scenarios and problem based learning for them so they can really go, now you got to challenge, now you got to solve this problem, now you got to do that. And then you can use elements of game-based learning. Perhaps you can use some of these narratives. Maybe they can change direction. Maybe if they don't get to this journey, they got to go on another journey and things like that. It's just the more you explore it, the more it almost becomes kind of like natural in the way that you teach, because you're just realizing, well, that works really, really well for this group of kids, but they're not so interested after a while. But this group of kids could do it 10 lessons. So then you adapt it and go, well, maybe these guys are loving these problems to solve. These ones over here, are you really wanting to go on a journey and maybe even make their own video game or make their own board game or anything just from these experiences? And then what you're doing is you're kind of working out that best fit in some ways. Not every teacher has the time to do all those types of learning for all different students, but I guess my message is the way that as a teacher of those great experiences where you have those moments where everyone's tuned in, what is that? What's happening there? Is that something that's a problem? I know in sustainability, when kids used to see this video in Hawaii of all the plastic washing up on the beach and the turtles and the birds and things like that, it became then problem-based, you know what I mean? Because it was a problem that was happening and then that was the problem. But then the project was to make a campaign. So it's like it's taking on these little, the more you learn about these different base learnings, the more you see how they're adaptable to different situations along the journey. And that's something that even each class is different. It's hard to say this class is going to take this or this class is going to take that. I know they all like challenge, design thinking and things like that, but the way that you approach that is really like a little bit of testing you got to do with the class to see, are they really taking this game-based learning, or do they prefer outdoor learning, or do they prefer scenario-based learning and things like that? Mm.
All right. Well, we're kind of at the end here. So looking forward, what are you optimistic about with education and what you're seeing currently? What's going to change in a positive way in the next few years?
Everything. I mean, everything or nothing, it's one of those things with AI. It's already changing, I'm optimistic because I'm here talking to you, like who would have thought Phil Alcock, this guy teaching, has got this crazy idea to talk about AI in education, and AI has given me a voice, hasn't it? In a lot of ways, it's given me a confidence to show all these cool things that I know. And I feel that as more people experiment with AI, more innovation hubs happen, more, levels of understanding of AI, more like really digging deep into, getting past the media hype and the whatever and starting to go, well, what does AI mean for me? I think it's just absolutely incredible. I know myself that the experience of what AI is doing in my own lessons and that impact, the kids are going crazy. There's less problems. There's no parent complaints. There's a lot of really charged, enjoying the learning experience people. Imagine, I see over time, the more we adapt AI kind of makes us reevaluate what we've been doing a little bit. And if that's, to me, that's enough. Like if we're just having a bit of a look, like sometimes people just don't believe in project-based learning, and maybe they're people that don't even listen to these podcasts. Maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe they got to this far and think I'm still not really sold or anything, and that's fine. It doesn't need to be. You don't need to change everything, but I feel that with AI, just try and work with it. See if you can put some of your thinking down and see what you can develop. Because I know that people that have been like really anti-AI, and of course they talk to me for a while, and I won't shut up about AI. And then they finally go, all right, I'm just going to test out some things. And they're showing me these chatbots and lessons. And I'm like, just please, I got a lot of work to do. I love that you're keen, but hey, but I mean, if you're creating these schools, and imagine those school environments where people can take risks, where they can have fun projects, where they can take their kids out every day to go and do something, and they're not scolded to be like, no, they should be in class doing their subjects and whatever else. Like if it's going to change a little bit of that system, you must do this and the kids must do this kind of horrible feeling that goes on that leaves, 30, 40, 50% of kids behind, really. Well, most. Some are doing it and don't even know why. If you can then engage people in learning, engage them in solving problems, that's only going to lead to good things. And already I'm working with incredible people that if it wasn't for AI, I would still be teaching, which I'd be fine with that. But now I'm like, look at all the people I'm meeting, look at all the fun I'm having. Just have fun with AI and be optimistic that it's not going to be, cooking your dinner yet, but maybe in the future, by the time I'm old, I'll have a little robot that's going to bring me my food because I'm just chilling out, watching on my rocking chair, and I've got something making my coffees. I mean, that's pretty cool. Why wouldn't you be excited for that? But in reality, like our whole school system around the world is getting a shake-up, and I can only see that the innovative schools and people are going to be rocking it, and it's going to be just cascading. And I don't like the word snowballing for this kind of thing, but in a lot of ways, it's like a sonic boom of just greatness. You go onto LinkedIn and you're just charged. So, wow, look at all these amazing things people are doing in life and things. I see so many great things that I just think to myself, this is why I stick at what I'm doing. This is why I stay up so many hours and do so much work and things, because I believe in it. I believe that project learning and active learning is going to be the way forward. And I know that universities are talking about that now. Just think about that for kids. Think about what that means, that maybe those future kids in 10, 20 years are going to walk into schools that are PBL schools that are, got a whole range of different things. They're not just like everyone chatting to a chatbot and getting information, but we're talking like really engaging learning experiences that I can now create a personal project for every student in the class within minutes. You know what I mean? Of course, I add it and admin and whatever else that I have to do, but I'm sure a tool's going to do that not too long in the future. Think about what it's doing for the learning experience. Think about what it's going to do for those kids that are disconnected from school. Now, you imagine all those kids, like you think I meet all these CEOs, I meet so many amazing people, like I'm sure you do. How many people are in those positions, are neurodiverse, are like shattered from schools, are like angry and frustrated? Imagine those same people in the schooling system that were heard, that were seen, that now have a voice. That can only do great things for education for the future, and maybe reshape the, let's look back at education a little bit. These educators are getting paid no money. People in Mexico and lots of places around the world are really on very low wages, and they're not taken seriously. Teachers are always seen as someone, it's like, oh yeah, you're a teacher. It's like roll of the eyes kind of thing, but it's like, why not? Why teachers are going to be empowering and leading this generation of AI and where this is headed. I think personalized learning, engaging with school, having fun. I can't imagine it in some schools that are just filled with anger and hate and problems and bullying and strict schools and teachers screaming at students. I've seen so many bad things in my schooling times. This is what AI in education is going to rethink this whole experience, and I can only see that the students are going to benefit in the long run. Maybe in the short run, we got a lot of battles and a lot of politics and a lot of systems and a lot of extreme challenges. But in the long run, lots of people are working together And really, we're showing the way. We're showing the way through AIxPBL. We're showing the way through these amazing developed chatbots. We're showing the way through some of these really amazing tools that can help you with this. You know, we haven't even started with the data side yet. Imagine, I know people that are working on amazing data analysis tools that straight away you're going to have learning plans and everything ready for that student without even having to do anything. You're going to know you don't need to give that kid the year 5 textbook because they're not going to access it and their results say they're not. So then I feel that this data is the big thing that's going to drive the change. And I know in myself, in my class, the results have improved. I know with experiments and classes that I've worked is, results have improved anywhere from 40% to 400%. So I can see when the academic results start speaking for all the cool things that are happening with AI and the studies start coming out, it's going to be a really exciting place to be a teacher. And I think it'll attract a lot of people that might be like, hey, this career looks interesting now because I can do all these creative things, you know? So yeah. I feel that it will get better and do great things. I'd be optimistic, but also it's going to take some time. We got to do it right. We can't just rush it.
Yeah. And I just want to, so my kind of rant on this a little bit is that it has to stay human-centric, right? So teacher is still the key role. AI can't replace the teachers, but it can enhance the learning experiences and really help the teachers with those kids, right, who are disengaged or have special needs or just need that little extra attention that we can't always have the capacity to do, and AI can help us there. So fill the gaps, but yes, not replace the teachers or say just do the assessments on their own. They can provide data to a teacher who then have a better understanding of what a student needs. So awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Phil. This has been great. Your passion comes through so clearly here for what you're doing and the impact that it's having. And this is why I do the show, right? I love to talk to folks like you who are excited about what you're doing and are making a difference, innovating in education. So awesome. I'm so glad we finally got the chance to do this. And it was everything I hoped it would be. So
me too. I don't know what you just went straight into my head then, Eric, and just got that information out like that. So I was being really excited. I've listened to some of your podcasts a little and I'm like, wow, this guy knows how to just knows people or you just got to the core of me and I appreciate that. So thank you. That's really nice of you. And I hope that the listeners can take something away positive from this conversation. So thank you.
Yeah, I hope people are inspired. Be creative. Don't be afraid, right? Take on that AI thing and see what it can do for you. Yeah, that's awesome.
That quote, what would you do if you weren't afraid, and then maybe take that with AI and just have some fun with it. See what it does.
Exactly.
You throw some stuff at it and see what it comes back with. It's not going to do everything yet, but, have fun with it.
Yes, and don't wait for it to be perfect. I've seen so much pushback. Oh, well, it still hallucinates or whatever. It's okay. It's never going to be completely right? It's never going to be totally unbiased. I'm never going to be totally unbiased. I'm not perfect. AI doesn't have to be perfect. So yes, don't be afraid. Use it. Yeah. Phil Alcock is another guy who just gets it. It's personal for him, and his passion is palpable. And he really is applying his human intelligence and experience effectively to produce real solutions and innovation. We also see here, this is another example of a teacher who took his frustration with traditional teaching methods and created a new career path for himself in helping other teachers and schools to be creative and innovative. I also love that, although he advocates for project-based learning, he doesn't limit himself to or restrict his approach to coming up with engaging learning experiences. He blends play-based games and scenarios and problem-solving approaches to appeal to a wide range of interests and needs. Now, his newsletter covers the whole spectrum of possible approaches to teaching and learning, and it's always very practical and grounded in real classroom experience. So check out his newsletter if you haven't already. Okay, if you're enjoying this podcast, please subscribe and share. This is the first episode of season 3. We're so excited to continue sharing. I've got some great guests lined up with amazing stories of innovation and education you don't want to miss. I'm Eric Byron. Thanks for listening to the Education Innovators Podcast, and to all those education innovators out there, thanks for doing what you do. You are making a difference.